Hello.
Oh, very loud. Hold on. Hello. What's
Can you
up?
hear? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So what the hell happened to you, dude? You used to be so edgy, so toned, smiley, funny. You walked away from Jesus, and now you're a disgruntled lefty.
Okay, yeah. So first and foremost, I don't know what you mean by so toned. I was actually incredibly skinny back then. Also, smiley. No, I was doing scripted videos, and I was actually really depressed and anxious and having like OCD panic attacks, pretty much all day, every day, off camera. So no, I was actually the most miserable I'd ever been during the time in which I was actually making the conservative content. I just was doing scripted videos, so I could put on a front for 20 minutes to record.
Okay, that's fair enough. Do you think that you would ever walk back to Christianity?
No, Christianity is fatally, fatally flawed.
Okay, what do you think of the churches of pride?
I'm not sure what that is.
So, if you go around, you'll see a lot of churches with, the trans flag. They usually have like a female or transgender minister.
Okay.
It's pretty common. I mean, you probably, I guess, don't have an opinion on it now because you're not a Christian.
I mean, if that were Christianity also, just like embracing homosexuality or something, like I guess that's a little better. But it certainly is
Well,
that there are still fatal flaws with Christianity, like foundationally, fundamentally, just the whole story, the salvation stuff, the fact that God is supposed to be the ultimate justice, but doesn't actually judge people according to their actions. There's a bunch of different flaws.
yeah, I agree. The thing is, I think we agree actually a lot more than we disagree. My main concern is actually most churches, the majority, 99.9%, have never flown a flag, whether it's American, a national flag.
Okay.
And now, when you actually look at a lot of the churches, especially in cities, the first time in history, you actually now see a flag being donned on top of a church, and I'm not even really fully a Christian, so don't take me as like a hardcore Christian.
Hmm.
It seems as like a political move, kind of like the Nazis when they threw the swastikas over the churches, as almost like a way that they conquered the faith.
Maybe I don't know what's the actual. I guess what's the argument you're trying to get at?
I mean, I guess you and I both can look at this as like a neutral perspective and look at these churches as they're donning political flags. Do you find that discerning at all?
Not particularly, no, because religion is already heavily involved in politics, whether we like it or not. So, like, if you want to look at the groups of people most or least accepting of gay people, it's white evangelical Christians.
The most accepting?
The least accepting of gay people.
Wait, you think that white Christians are the least accepting
No,
of
white
gay people?
evangelicals are the least accepting group, even compared to U.S. Muslims.
What about like worldwide? I know you're talking about
I'm talking
United
about
States, but
U.S.
world.
No, I obviously not
Oh, okay, okay.
worldwide. No, but in the
Oh,
U.S.,
okay, okay.
yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Though, is politics and religion is already tied together heavily. So, like, if you are Christian, you're far more likely to be against gay marriage. You're far more likely to be against abortion. You're more likely to take certain political stances. So, just if some churches have like political flags there, it's
Well,
not really
they only
anything
have
that
one.
unusual.
There's only been one other time in history that we can point to. I'm sure there's been other times, and that's when the Nazi flags were donned over the churches when they took a knee to the political party. You're seeing that now with
So are you
the
saying that?
transgender.
So you're saying that because they're flying like a gay flag there, that's as if like the gays have taken over the church?
No, no, the gays haven't. I would say that like the left wing like Marxist movement has definitely taken over the churches. So
Okay.
it's almost like a
So then what
symbolism
do you
of.
have to say then when I tell you that white evangelical Christians are the least accepting of gay people here in America? How does that follow if radical
That
wokeism is taking over the churches?
Well, I mean, there's nothing wrong with like okay, so aside from there are instances obviously in America where gay people are punched and abused and stuff for sure. But even the Christians now, I mean, for the longest time the most they did was no, we don't want them to get married. Like the harshness that comes from American Christians has been so minor compared to obviously globally. And then when you break it down into America, the pushback is, "Oh, you guys aren't accepting uh, everything that we're trying to offer you. The backlash against the Christians is it seems like ridiculous.
No,
It's
because
like,
the what is being offered to those people is, hey, God's gift of salvation is here for you. All you have to do is
yeah,
deny your sexuality because existing this way is a sin. That's usually how the conversation goes. I know you're trying to
yeah,
say that Marxists or whatever have taken over the church. The vast majority of churches, no, they're still anti-gay.
no,
Uh,
you're right. You're right.
yeah,
You're
so
right.
like that's usually how that conversation would go.
It, correct, correct. So I mean, I don't know. I just thought it was interesting when you drive around and you see these flags that are draped right over the church, and you have like these trans. We have one,
Do you think that's
tons
kind
of
of
them in the city.
powerful? Like, here's this
It is
organization that is
powerful, 100%.
notorious for
They've
spreading
been conquered.
hatred against this group, and now they're trying to change their ways here.
No, I wouldn't say they're changing their ways because I mean you could fly all sorts of flags. The thing is that Christian churches generally, if you were trans or you're a drug addict or you're gay, you could still go there. They're going to say, yeah, you're going to go to hell, but they're not going to do anything else.
Right, but what
Actually,
I'm
the
telling you is it
symbolism.
doesn't matter if they don't do like I'm not saying that gay people are like oppressed by Christians and are being massacred in the streets or something. No, but the belief that being gay is a sin foundationally is a belief of
Yeah,
bigotry. It is a
the,
intrinsic
the current
characteristic.
day,
Hold
yeah.
on. It's an intrinsic characteristic of another person that they cannot change, that you are arbitrarily more or less deeming as a sin. Not you yourself, but Christians would
Yeah.
deem as a sin. This is no different than me looking at a white person saying it's a sin to be white.
Well, do you find it interesting that you have churches adopting the flag and then appointing ministers that clearly go against the Bible? I mean, they do specifically say that women can't be ministers, and then also that like being gay is a sin. They clearly outline that. It's interesting from a neutral perspective to see churches that have donned the flag and taken a knee to the leftist ideology going against entirely what the Bible teaches and
Well,
what
there's a
Jesus.
lot of,
Well,
there's a lot of debate about what the Bible actually teaches about gay marriage,
oh,
right? So, like, the verses in the Bible primarily are against men raping
laying with
boys,
men.
things like
But
this.
no, there's I could probably find four passages right now
No,
that say
I
like,
know all of them. Yes, there's some in
yeah.
Leviticus and there's some in Romans. Um,
Well, what's your thoughts on how does this change if Christianity was to actually adopt the trans flag and take a knee to the leftism? How would that fundamentally change the religion as a whole? I mean, I
it
mean, most
doesn't.
of the Bible would
It
have.
doesn't
Well,
necessarily. Like, Christianity would still be heavily flawed.
yeah, yeah. I mean, are you a leftist? Do you actually
I'm a
take a
social
knee to?
democrat, so I would be considered a liberal.
Okay, so not a democratic socialist.
I'm a democratic
The, the,
social.
wait, social
No,
democrat or
social. Yeah,
democratic
I was like, wait a minute. No, I'm a
Yeah,
social
yeah. Well,
democrat.
that's
Yeah, it is confusing because they sound the same, but social democrat is basically just in favor of stronger social services, but still ultimately capitalist, which is what I am. A social or a
a
democratic
democrat socialist
socialist actually wants
is just
to.
a communist.
Yeah, they want to introduce socialism via democratic means.
Okay, I didn't know that. I actually thought that you were a socialist. Well, when you
No.
switched over, okay, okay, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah,
What do
no,
you think of?
I have some like I understand where a lot of like I guess I empathize with a lot of socialists as far as the concerns largely stem from like real economic issues that are here, but I think that a lot of those problems could be solved still with capitalism. I also think that socialism would be way too fundamental of a change.
So okay, so would you say that the founding fathers were progressives at the time, and they were actually fighting against conservatives?
Um I don't know. I mean, maybe if you want to
Well,
phrase it
because
that way, because they were kind of fighting against like a status quo, right?
that's what. Well, yeah, conservatism is really just conserving what's in the past, and that depends on your geographic location. So, like, if you're a conservative in like a Muslim nation, then you're trying to uphold the older structure. So, like the founding fathers, when they first started out, were actually progressives, and now the conservatives are trying to conserve what a progressive movement was back then. Progressives now are trying to dismantle the
Progressives
whiteness.
constantly, yes, want to make more progress to see. So, like, progress back then may have been, hey, you know what? For now on, we're not going to view black people as subhuman. Yay. Now, progress is like, hey, let's also be accepting of gay people and other sexual orientation, things like this. So yeah, a
Okay,
lot of conservatives do seem interested in primarily just conserving whatever they happen to be born into at the moment. So like I think a lot of the conservatives right now that are like, I need to conserve traditional marriage, probably if they were born in a different time period, would have been saying, we need to conserve the sanctity of the white race and we need to keep black people out or something like this.
Uh-huh. Well, okay, so let me throw this at you, and So conservatism is almost like driving a car and putting your foot on the brake pedal. Progressivism is almost, pressing gas. When you have too much conservatism, you're just stagnant. You're not going forward. If you have too much progressive, you're just flying forward. Does it feel like society right now is both pressing the brake and the gas pedal at the same time?
I
And
mean,
if
a
we
little
let,
bit,
if
yeah,
we
because
lose one,
you have two groups of people that are like one group is trying very hard to push us forward consistently. And don't get me wrong, I agree that there's such a thing as like too much progress or too much progress too fast. All of these things, like I would agree with that. I don't think progress just by itself is intrinsically always good. But ultimately, progress does seem to be the only real option, right? Like nothing stays the same.
yeah,
Conservatives
you're
have
right.
not conserved anything, really. Everything
Well, no, no, no,
progresses.
that's not. Well, not entirely. I would say that the philosophy of being a conservative is looking back at the past and pointing out what you want to preserve going forward.
So what do you
A
think it
progressive,
is? What do you think that a lot of conservatives want to preserve now?
well, I think that both progressives and conservatives lost the way of balancing the two. So, like, I would consider myself both progressive and conservative. So, and I think a lot of society moves forward at a good pace when they can balance the two. So, like one example is Jordan Peterson talks about, and I'm trust me, I'm a huge critic of him, but he points out a good thing. A lot of people can't articulate when is the left when they've gone too far, or can you point out when the left has gone too far?
It would be on a it would have to it would depend on the issue.
Well, okay, so like if someone said, show me examples of when the right goes too far. Blanket abortion bans, bam, that's them going too far. I could give you a million examples.
Mhm.
Can you name just a couple examples of when the left goes too far?
Yeah, the left goes too far with I think involving the conversation around trans sports. I think that that's a something that is undeniable. That even if someone has a valid gender identity that is different from their biological sex, they still have a biological sex that still plays a role in some sports and some of their ability to play those sports. So I think that the left was too far when it came to the sort of just you're a transphobe if you don't just let trans people compete because you can recognize a trans woman as a woman, but also recognize that their gender identity is a woman, but their biology might be different, and that could uh, potentially pose issues when it comes to competition.
These are some pretty solid points. I gotta hand this to you, man. I'm kind of impressed because generally when I watch a lot of left wing stuff, a lot of right wing stuff, and no one's hitting the middle, kind of like how you are.
That's because
And
yeah, because I was conservative, as you know, and so like a lot of people have this idea of me because I like you said at the beginning, like I used to be so edgy or whatever. I'm still very edgy and still very like offensive and abrasive to a lot of people. But because of that now, since it's the other side, there's sort of this idea spread about me that like I've become like this major like communist offended by everything. Like
yeah,
it's just not true.
I think that this because it's weird because you're not conservative anymore, but I can feel you still have that. You have a good balance of progressivism, which I think you have to have, and then also conservatism, where you kind of like before we go too fast, let's look back at what was working. What are some good philosophies? What are some good practices that were working?
Mhm.
We obviously like if you and I looked at forward at Earth in 200 years, do you think that there would be borders? Does it make sense that eventually we're always going to have borders for countries, or do you think that eventually borders would get dissolved, especially like once we hit space? Can you picture Earth in 500 years having borders everywhere?
Yeah, I mean it's hard to imagine that, but also like again, like I would just if I could conceptualize in the future. So, like, for example, we are going more towards a globalism direction as far as the
Uh huh.
economy, right? Like, we all are trading with other countries, everything else. So, we're already headed towards globalism. It kind of would make sense that you would see borders be dissolved throughout this process as well. However, I would also say that just if I can conceptualize that, I also, again, am aware of the serious issues that would arise if you were to just take the border down all of a sudden and just let people just free flow into the country, there obviously needs to be a process by which people can immigrate
Well,
here.
let me throw this at you, and I think that you're probably one of the few people that could understand this. So Let's just say if America wanted to actually export its values, I think conservatives are actually losing the global stage. We all know that. So if they packaged up something where they said, hey, we're going to do open borders with another country, but you need to adhere to these values. And we have to allow the actually migration in both directions. So one of the issues that we're facing in America is that we're having a osmosis where we're allowing all this influx into one direction, but it's actually extremely difficult for any of us to actually move to any of the countries where they're coming from. And the values and laws are much different. If you had two nations that had, you could say, hey, this is the treaty. We both follow the exact same rules here, here, and here. And as long as we negotiate that, our people can move to and fro. And maybe even say they cannot vote in the other country, but your children can. And over time, that would make sense to actually almost have like I guess, a wedge to kind of like, I guess, export your ideology of your nation. Maybe it's the Constitution. You look at another country and say, yeah, we're willing to actually allow open borders with you, but you need to actually have these freedom of speech, freedom of religion.
So
I don't
first of all, I
know.
mean, like, I recognize that, like, again, in theory, I think that that wouldn't necessarily be like a terrible idea, but you have a couple issues, which is, of course, the nation that is being immigrated away from. How do you go about actually making sure they hold your values? A lot of that is then going to look like the government getting involved, right? Overthrowing
Well,
them and other kinds of foreign politics that usually don't work out very well for the country or
well,
for America.
let's just say, I mean, right now, it's so difficult for an American to actually even move to a place like Mexico without a large amount of money,
Well, I don't even think
or
a
a
lot of
lot.
people want to because, like you were just talking about with the difference
Actually,
of values, like,
no, I disagree. I
okay,
think
well, there's
capitalism.
also a lot of issues there, right? Like a lot of people that are immigrating from Mexico to the U.S. Are fleeing, looking for better economic opportunities, and
Uh,
etc. Not so much can be said for people leaving America.
well, let's just say someone has a good chunk of change, not a ton, but a good chunk of change. They can't make it work in America. They say, let's use capitalism. I'm going to buy a ranch out in Mexico because it became dirt cheap. I'm going to work the soil and actually improve it. I think that allowing an ebb and flow from both countries, not just into one, would actually allow, I mean, you know what? It would require a risky person. It would be like the people that settled America. It's not going to be the majority of the people at first. It's going to be people that are adventurous,
Yeah, but
that
then you
say,
have
screw
another
it.
issue too. Well, no, because you can't have like just adventurous people because you're talking about two already established nations that are now agreeing to have open borders. But then you have another issue, which is how do you know the people immigrating from that country actually share your values? You're going to have
Well,
to do
and that's
some
where,
kind of a test, some kind of a check,
yeah.
and then you're pretty much just back to an immigration system.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, well, I mean, the country that you're, working with, you could say, listen, this is our constitution. Your nation has to adopt these principles and these laws, these set ones. If that's ever breached, then we no longer have open borders with you.
But okay, we kind of already do that other than without the open borders thing. Like people here illegally that enter the country illegally and then don't break any laws, many of them stay.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that we're allowing people to come into our country, but we can't go to theirs. If their country is not adhering to I guess our set of rules or our foundational principles,
Mhm.
then we shouldn't allow people in here. But the thing is that the people would actually demand from their government, let us adopt American values, so that we can actually have open borders with them. And they would actually put pressure on their government to actually make fundamental changes rather than being like, I mean, I've done a lot of traveling. You go to a lot of these countries and you try to go to any websites, your internet is absolutely throttled. You can't learn online, you can't view
No, I
lots of
agree.
videos.
There's
But let,
absolutely.
let's just say let's just hypothetically Venezuela, and we say, sorry, we're not taking any of your people, but we will negotiate with any country and we'll allow open borders with you as long as you adhere to these policies. And like freedom of speech, freedom of religion. It doesn't have to be all the stuff, but like something that's really standard. And a lot of the countries that don't follow that will say, sorry, you can't have that. The people
I feel
that are
like
stuck in
this
those,
is just overcomplicating things though, because why
is
not like
that,
so my solution is I get
but
the
no, but no one will move to those countries because they suck so bad.
yeah, but again, the only way to get them to not suck would have to be American intervention.
No, you wouldn't. No, you would just say, listen, we're not going to go to war with you guys, but we will offer you open borders as long as you adhere to these. Instead of
I feel like
how
if we
like
had that,
George.
I don't know how many people would just from America like want to go, but even more so, like the immigrants here illegally commit less crime than native born Americans. already in the country. So
Yeah, I'm an open borders person. But the thing is, I don't believe in open borders in one direction. I think it's absolutely disastrous for a country to do it that way.
that
Absolutely
you might have a point there, but and I also understand the issue then would be, well, what about people not wanting to leave and go to the other country, but then the other country
I
sucks.
would leave. Trust me, there's so many people. A lot of youth want some adventure, and yeah, maybe they're not going to go to Venezuela, right? They don't want to get shot, and they don't want to be kidnapped. But there's other countries that are a little bit less dangerous, but still impossible to move to. As our housing prices get worse and worse and worse, we need to like take that stress off of our country and allow some of our people to leave. And maybe they'll like right now, if you look up at Mexico City, I think they're complaining that there's so many English speakers, and they're having a little bit of the reverse. But it would actually be kind of fun to see a bunch of Americans moving to other countries with their capital, investing in those countries.
I
And I
mean,
think it would
maybe
actually
I'm
be
sure I don't know if there would be issues there or not, but like generally
okay.
speaking, like as far as immigrants coming here, even illegal immigrants, they are benefiting the economy and not committing less and not committing much
Well,
crime. So they're
th-
already bringing
so
those
I'm not.
benefits.
Well, I'm not complaining about the immigrants coming here. But what will happen is if we don't have a two-way system where we can actually leave. Let's just say I'm an online creator. There's no reason why I shouldn't be able to move to a cheaper country, give them the taxes, and work from online there while I'm paying cheap rent or buying a house, which would actually boost their economy. Like it's not just about. I know you care a lot about America and you want to boost America's economy, but like we shouldn't be pulling away all these people from all these other countries or their capital. So like we're yanking all these people and putting them into America, so we're super prosperous. If we allowed a two-way system, then maybe we could actually take some entrepreneurs, go to their countries, and actually help them develop some stuff. And so like your system right now, where it's only a one way, is only hurting those countries.
Well, you might have a point there, but again, like the process by which you improve those countries is going to be a really complicated one. But
No, I disagree. I think you allow a two-way street. You allow some people to go there and start investing. Maybe it's dangerous at first, but they would start cleaning it up. Like
yeah,
you have all
I
these.
do not think that's the case. I mean, you're talking about countries that might not have voting rights. You're talking about countries that might not have
Oh,
democracy or
you have to. Yeah, you can't go to the extremes. So like the first steps would be to maybe go to countries like, I don't know, Chile, right? So like I've looked into it. It's so difficult to move to Chile. It's insanely difficult as an American to move there. You can hop around on a visa and renew it and do all this other stuff, but it's so difficult. But for them to go to America, it's so easy. And Chile is not a dangerous country. But the thing is they lack a lot of the capital. And the thing is that they're a fairly safe nation with very similar set standards that we have. But for some reason, they're locked down. They can send their people out to America, but it's so difficult for Americans to go there.
I just feel like
It's just,
ultimately this is, and I'm not trying to hit you with like a buzzword, but I do feel like this is getting into colonialism territory a little bit as far as
well,
like going
so
into
we,
certain nations, changing the nation to be more fitting to our values so that then more people from our
yes,
previous nation can
yes,
then come there.
absolutely.
That is
It's free
colonialism.
market.
Yeah.
It's free market, and it's the safest way rather than doing George W. Bush version of like let's bring democracy to the Middle East. This would be like so. Let's just say a bunch of people start moving there, and you learn their culture. This isn't like slamming them, and especially if you were to do this with a lot of countries, you're gonna get these younger generation that's like screw America, so tired of this place, rent's so expensive. Let's a bunch of us go down to Chile. We're gonna end up buying some cheap apartments. We're gonna set up some tech companies down there. Chile's like hell yeah.
No,
We're getting
you're
some
forgetting
taxes.
that how much that like this is where the conversation of gentrification comes in. This is where like what you were just talking about with Mexico City, where like if other people with
They
more
are
capital
complaining.
are traveling into the country and then establishing businesses and whatnot that do not accommodate to the local area, then those people are oftentimes the ones suffering, even if they're able to make
No,
capital other ways.
that would be like saying that Americans are suffering because all the people are coming here. That's literally the you're being
No, I'm
hypocritical
saying
on
no, no,
that.
no, because you're talking about another nation that has less economic stability, less economic well-being. So you
Yeah.
do run more risks there than the other way around.
I don't. So you're again. So okay. So you're okay with us taking in tons of people, but not us being able to go to other countries?
I'm
I'm
okay with
confused.
us being able to go to other countries. I'm concerned with the sentiment that we should all in large groups be going to other countries in order to intentionally try and get them to adopt our cultural norms and everything
Well,
else so that we can then bring more people over there. That's getting into the more yikesy territory because you also started
yeah,
off by talking about the adventure people want, and a lot of that comes
yeah.
from the difference of values and culture.
I mean, the thing is, so Well, what would your solution be? It would be you. Would you want to slow down immigration to America, or do you want to keep it the same, speed it up?
They're not doing a harm. So immigrants coming here into America isn't doing a harm. If a
Okay,
large amount of people with all who already had a lot of money were immigrating into a poorer country, they do run the risk of doing harm.
well, okay. What if what if they only allowed because right now the way it works is that pretty much only rich people can move to other countries out of America. A lot of those countries do that on purpose so that you have to bring large amounts of capital. What if we did the reverse, where poor Americans could actually go to those countries like Chile? Because that would help it. It would be like the same as bringing the poor people into America.
I, I don't know, I guess. But then, like, at that point, why wouldn't we just be working harder with our own country to provide the social services necessary to take care of those poor Americans?
I'm just not as I guess because I don't really consider and this doesn't I don't want this to come off bad. I just don't consider myself as American, not as a bad way. I'm not anti-American. I just don't care much about the borders. I would love to see some of these other countries being. I feel like if those countries had help from actual people just moving there and I don't know. Maybe it's just a pipe dream. Maybe it's a utopia. I just feel that America just sucking up all the resources and people and labor forces. It's just hurting those countries because they're getting worse and worse. Yes, I get your point that America makes a lot of money. We get a lot of taxes. We get all this cheaper labor
Well,
from
you
these
have a
immigrants.
significant benefit there. So, like, if you sent a
For
wealthy
for us,
person,
but not for them.
yeah, but if
But
you
not for
sent a
them.
wealthy person to that other country, like a wealthy American to that other country, the more that you see that happening, the more that it's going to lead to
Not wealthy. How
crises.
about this? How about we don't send wealthy? Why don't we send our poor there, like the poor is coming to our countries?
Because that's where I am a social democrat. I don't think the solution to poor people in America is to just send them to another country. I think it's we should have the social services in this country established well enough to take care of those people.
So you don't think that we should find some way to help any of those countries, or have like open borders or a two-way street?
No, we should
Just have
absolutely find ways, but you've advocated for things that kind of come back to colonization a little bit, or colonialism, sorry. And yeah, things that would ultimately be harmful.
I mean, I kind of look at what's happening to us as like a form of colonialization, and not in a bad way. Like we're getting lots of like Hispanics, we're getting a
But
lot of
that's
like.
not like it. Look at the rate of assimilation from immigrants in this country.
Well, no, you are
How many
you.
immigrants from Mexico speak English? The majority of illegal immigrants here speak English. They are
Yeah, but
assimilating and then contributing to the economy and boosting all of
I
our
agree.
well-being.
I
I know
agree,
that
but
you've
I
now
think.
stepped, hold, just to be clear, I know that you have clarified you're talking about like a poor American specifically, but I don't know how you would control for that. What would inevitably happen
Well,
is you'll have people who have the necessary capital, who already have all the capital, go to these areas, start investing in those areas, and it will lead to price increases and inevitably push locals out.
so you have all these and I hate to organize people by skin tone differentials, but in Chicago and then New York, you have a lot of like black leaders that are complaining about all the immigrants that's hurting their economy and stuff. What like I think that they should have the freedom to move. Like imagine you have like this huge black community from Chicago move down to Chile or Argentina and like start working on their own city. I feel like what we've done is we've squeezed certain groups so tightly into these areas and then no one can leave. It's like America is almost like this black void or a black hole,
People
I
can
guess you would
leave
call
this
it.
country. Like
No,
at
it's
this
not
point, you're
easy.
talking
It's
about other
not easy.
countries' immigration
No,
policy.
people can leave this country if they have money. What America's done in a lot of these countries is we've created an inescapable prison. And look it up. Don't take my word for it. Try to even look at the cost of trying to go to another country. They know that a lot of Americans are rich, so they set the standards of like you need to have a 4-year degree, you need to have
You're
$60,000 in the
literally
bank
not. You're.
account.
Do you not realize the flaw here? So you're saying that they know Americans are rich. What do you think is going to happen when these other countries start letting Americans free flow in? They know Americans are rich. They're going to raise the prices. The locals there who can't afford these things are not going to be able to afford that, and they're going to get fucked.
Well, that's why I think that maybe America could create like a program to help like poor people move to those countries. So because like the poor people, when they move and immigrate to other countries, they boost their economy. That's what they're doing to
I know, but
America.
I just think that if you're an American here, like the government should then do its thing
You should
first
stay
to
there.
try and take care of you. Yeah.
I see. I guess this is what it's weird because this is where you're slightly more conservative and I'm more progressive. I believe in more of like an open border, more like
I'm
there's so much
in
youth
in
that wants to get
theory
out of America.
in theory, to be clear, I'm there with you also, but it's just that I'm aware of all the uh potential problems and risks associated with that right now.
So, but here's the issue: is that you're going to bring all these immigrants to America. America's going to get richer and richer and richer. The other countries are going to get poorer and poorer, and that problem. And we'll never be able to allow anyone from America or the West to actually move to those other countries that are coming to our countries, because it'll just everyone will make the point like, oh, if we let too many Americans or anyone from the West go to those countries, it's going to make their prices go up, and it's
No,
gonna
it
hurt
would
their
need to be. You're now again talking about those countries and their immigration policies, but at the end of the day, I do hear what you're saying, and I think that it's coming from like a good place. Don't get me wrong, and I also really appreciated you calling in because I think that we made some like good progress here.
Yeah, it was good. Actually, it was a great conversation. None of the YouTubers are talking in the middle at all. So,
Well, hopefully you stick around, and yeah, I may have turned my back on God, but I'm still not the commie libcuck or whatever. Okay, so don't worry.
All right, have a good one, man.
If you want to support the channel, please consider becoming a member today. Members get early access to videos, access to all the stream VODs, and exclusive access to emotes as well. So if you'd like to support the channel, become a member today.